All right, so just a reminder, today's webinar is going to be recorded. So if you miss anything, we'll send the recording out later today. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in on what we're all here to learn more about, which is Pinterest's latest campaign, Pinterest Predicts. So Pinterest Predicts is Pinterest's largest business user campaign of the year that's developed to predict trends and insights for the upcoming year so that Pinterest creators can continue to deliver cutting-edge content, services, and products to their customers. And most important, and what Ella is going to explain shortly, is how this entire working experience was centralized from one place. So this holistic working experience helped Pinterest deliver this campaign in 11 locales across 35 different trend pages. So through this campaign, they even added 3 new languages, and those were English for India, English for Canada, and English for Australia. This year, Pinterest Predicts was more global than ever, with more locales and featured international creators for the first time, in addition to showcasing international markets within the report and which trends are growing for them specifically. So let's pause for just a moment. We're going to put up another poll. Out of curiosity, how many locales is your marketing site currently localized into? If you have more than one site, you can submit an average. We'd like to see how many locales overall you're currently translating in. And we'll give everyone a minute to respond to the poll. All right. Taking a look at the results. So it looks like the majority, over half of you, are currently localizing between 1 and 10. About 12% of you between 11 and 20. So we've got a good range here. And then almost a quarter of you aren't localizing yet. So I think there'll definitely be a lot to learn in this presentation, whether you're currently localizing or not, from what Ella and her team has done over at Pinterest. But before we get to that, over to Maddie to talk about some data.
Thanks, Kelly. All right, so as previously mentioned, Pinterest worked with one centralized workplace, which enabled them to save over 40 hours of manual work. The main features that enabled this work and time savings were Contentful's tagging functionality and self-developed scripts. Linguists didn't have to copy and paste the URLs, and work was centralized in one place because of the Smartling integrations with Figma and Contentful. So Ella is going to take us through each of these in just a moment. But before that, some additional notes from the campaign there were hundreds of press mentions across the world. So brand recognition is very important at Pinterest. So from a PR perspective, this was a big win. These trend predictions are 80% accurate year after year, and the trends identified through Pinterest Predicts end up growing faster and lasting longer than the ones spotted elsewhere. So it's important to spread this message. Also, web traffic skyrocketed for the entire business site that hosts the Predicts report. All right, and now I'm going to pass it over to Ella so she can share more about Pinterest Predicts.
Thank you so much for that, Maddie. Give me a second so that I'm able to share my screen with everyone. Okay, could you tell me? Perfect.
Looks good, Ella.
My screen. So you already heard that Pinterest Predicts is our not yet trending trends report that we publish every year in December on our marketing site. And we at Pinterest, we became really known for the predictive nature of our trends. We don't just recap what has been trending for the last year. We are presenting the topics that you are about to see take off. We're trying to give you a glimpse into the future. We launched this Predicts 2022 report in December last year, and we covered over 175 trends that we predict will rise in 2022. For internationalization, our team, it's one of the most challenging and most exciting initiatives we work on each year. And let me tell you why. And how we handled some of these challenges with Smartling and with Contentful. So As you can see right here in the video, the copy for Pinterest products is very, very creative. Some of the themes that we are showcasing here are curve appeal, where we are predicting that in 2022, rounded or curved furniture will be extremely popular, or bejeweled, that we think that we will be moving away from basic styles and getting fashion accessories with a lot of bling. If you scroll down the page, you can see other themes here, like architecture or oh my god. So this copy is very, very creative across the board. And on top of that, we are using this copy in many places within our web report, but also outside of the web report. Each copy is featured in the directory card, but then if you navigate to an actual theme page, so if I go to one of the pages on the Pinterest Predicts report, the same copy is featured at the top of the page. If I scroll down, the same copy is featured in section called Local Spotlight, as well as down the page in the CTA component. On top of that, we do have page metadata, so we do have page titles that need to feature the copy. We do have page descriptions for SEO optimization. All of these components are leveraging the same copy, and that's not to mention the images, PDF files, decks, videos, that, for example, the one that you saw at the very beginning. So the main challenge for us is to make sure that that copy is not only creative, but it's also consistently translated, consistently localized across the entire site and across the entire campaign. Now, the key to our success was that, firstly, very early on, we made the decision to centralize all content in Smartling. Not only the web content, but everything that we translated, we localized for products, had to be mapped in Smartling. Smartling, fortunately, has a number of integrations with Contentful, our CMS, but also with Figma that we used for localization of these images you are looking at right now. And we were also able to use Smartling for things like Word files or PowerPoint presentations. So again, everything that we created for products that needed to be internationalized was managed by us in Smartling. If there was a tool that our local teams wanted to use, but it wasn't integrated, we actually worked with those teams to find an alternative tool with exactly the same capabilities that was already connected, that we could leverage. We could leverage in Smartling. And second, the second key to our success was using a comprehensive glossary as soon as we had the international copy for each of our keywords. Now, what you are seeing here is is just a spreadsheet with all the translated key terminology. These creative terms, they show up again across the entire campaign. We worked with copywriters to create these local versions of each theme or each trend, and then we compiled these entries into this document at the beginning of our production cycle. We were able to upload that document into Smartling in one go. It contains about 2,000 entries across all locales, all languages that we were supporting. And it took us probably a couple of minutes to upload that document into Smartling. And once we had it in Smartling, we were able to create a glossary out of that document. What that glossary, the one you're looking at right now, shows us the term curve appeal, as well as its French German, also alternative. It's also showing alternatives, local alternatives in so many other languages that we are supporting. And this glossary allowed us to maintain consistency for every single string that we were translating, no matter whether that string lives on a website, whether it was an image, a video, deck, an email. As long as it contained this particular keyword in English, it was translated consistently across our entire campaign. Now, Smartling also actually allowed us to very quickly update the international versions of the copy whenever they changed. Yes, changes happen. If you worked on large campaigns in the past, you know that they do happen, sometimes pretty late in the game. And in some cases, even if that was just one string, one word, or one term, we had all that content mapped in Smartling. So we were able to just create one view and make that global change across PDF files, across mock pins, as well as all the web content that we were localizing at the time. Now, for anyone working on international campaigns and working in localization, you know that, and I can just emphasize how critical it is to have your content management and internationalization management centralized in one place, and to have your translation management platform connected to the TMS. And in this case, thanks to the Smartling Contentful Integration, any change we were making in Smartling was visible in Contentful in a matter of minutes, if not seconds, nearly immediately. So we would have the linguists go to Smartling, or we would go to Smartling ourselves, make a couple of changes. Then by the time we are checking the preview pages, the web content, those changes would already be visible for us. Another reason why Predicts was one of the most challenging campaigns, challenging launches for our team every year, is because on top of providing highly international, highly creative international copy, we also had to surface local content to our international users. So we are thinking about content that was created by pinners or Pinterest creators in the US, but also in Germany, in France, in Indonesia, Brazil, Mexico. And that content is also curated by our country teams. We do have amazing, talented team of editorial managers in each one of our critical markets, and their job, it is to find that beautiful, amazing content on Pinterest and serve it to our users, to our international users. Now, what you're looking at right now is our curve appeal page. That's one of Pinterest themes. And if I scroll down the page, we do have a specific section here called trending search terms. This is where we display the most popular terms on Pinterest, and we show you how much the traffic for these terms is growing. So I'm currently on the English US page that was designed with the US audience in mind. If I click on the first search term, round pool deck ideas, I'm able to navigate to the Pinterest platform that shows me all the pins created that match that search term, round pool deck ideas. So I can see that all these pins are in English, most of them created by users, by English-speaking users, often US users. But if I then navigate to the German page, so the German curve design page, I scroll down to the same section, trending search terms. I'm able to see that first search term, yes, it is translated into German. It's showing up in German to our German users. But what I would love to see as a person hypothetically based in Germany is for me to navigate to the Pinterest platform and see the German pins available. And that's what was critical for us to bring to our users, that we are feeding the search we are feeding results, local results for German, French, Spanish, Brazilian search terms. And that's what I can see in here. These results are local, these results are in German, and they would appeal to a German user. So this is what it looks like in Contentful. You can see that I have, this is the component that we were just looking at on the website. If I hover over this caption, this entry, I can see that there's a very long URL with unique URL with a unique UTM code. Then if I scroll down to the German section, I can see that, yes, I have that term localized, but the German section, the German entry has its own unique URL with a unique UTM code. Each market had their own set of unique URLs, and that's only for the search trend terms. If I scroll down the page, I can actually access special boards, Pinterest boards with curated content designed by our, curated by our editorial teams. And again, I'm on the US page. If I click on that CTA, explore the curve appeal board, I'm taken to the US Pinterest predicts board, where I'm able to look at all the US pins related to that theme, to those search terms. Back to the German page, I want to see exactly the same behavior here. When I'm on the German page, I'm a German user. I'm not interested that much in the US creators. I want to see creators that I can follow, that I can associate myself with. And the German user is able to navigate to a German Pinterest predicts board with content created by German creators and sourced, curated by our Pinterest German editorial teams. And that's the setup that we have for all the markets that we are supporting. Now, the URLs are all in the forms of embedded links. In Smartling, we actually have a functionality called file rewrite rules that we use all the time. When me and my team, we use that functionality all the time when we work with embedded links. It basically allows us to use Smartling when we want to replace an embedded link in the source copy with a custom link for our target language. And it's a great functionality when our source copy changes a lot over time, because it guarantees consistency forever. Every single time there's an embedded URL for Pinterest US account, that leads to a Pinterest US account in the US source copy, we make sure that in Spanish or in Portuguese or in other language, we are feeding our users or driving our users to Pinterest accounts created by the local teams, by the international teams. But our challenge for predicts was unfortunately not the constant changes, and not the fact that we are developing new content all the time. Our challenge here was the volume of work we had in relation to the URLs, just for the trends. So just for this section, we worked with approximately 2,000 custom URLs. So we tried to figure out if there's any way to optimize that content entry, that URL entry even more. And at that point, the team started exploring the tag functionality in Contentful and realized that we could actually leverage that functionality and optimize this kind of effort even more. So let me navigate to one more page. What you are looking at right now is a document that we used to create content in Contentful. Our team developed a script that allowed us to create content directly in Contentful and tag it in a certain way just by using a document like this one. So instead of trying to go into Contentful and try to replace the URLs one by one in so many components across so many locales, or trying to trying to use the file rewrite rules, we decided that maybe it would make sense for us to use the API script to upload all the content and all the URLs into Contentful automatically. What the script did is that it also added a tag into Contentful called the do not translate tag. And it was configured in such a way that it would prevent Smartling from reading the tagged files. It would send the entire page for translation, but it would strategically leave out certain components that were tagged, and these components were never picked up by Smartling, which is exactly what we wanted to achieve, because we didn't want our linguists to deal with tons and tons and tons of URLs. So what we did was that we copied the URLs into the spreadsheet. We already had the translations for each one of the keywords from the Smartling glossary. That's the work that we did at the very beginning of our production effort. We were able to upload that content pretty much in one go, just using the script. And after the content was uploaded, we used another script to obtain the entry ID. You might or might not know each component in Contentful has a unique ID number that we needed to work with, that we needed to obtain in order to work with that content further. And after that, after we had that spreadsheet, that document, and with those, with the ID numbers, the main benefit for us was that we were able to make subsequent changes in Contentful, directly in Contentful, using the API script, again and again and again, without actually having to go into Contentful, into the individual components, and without having to modify them manually. Now, the last challenge that we faced was related to new language launches. Until last year, our site had 30 locales, and it included 2 English variants, English for UK as well as English for US. We wanted to accommodate 3 additional locales, English for India, Canada, and Australia. So we would be bringing up the total numbers of English language variants to 5 on our site. And Predix was one of the main reasons why we wanted to do that. Right now, our site has 33 locales, including 5 English locales, UK, US, that you can see at the very top, as well as Australia, Canada, India, and UK. Now, I said before that we care a lot about displaying local content to our users, that a German page visitor would love to see pins from German creators or boards curated by the German curation editorial team. And exactly the same logic applies to our visitors from Canada, Australia, India. We care about their experience, and we want them to be able to see content created by their own creators, by their local Pinterest teams. On top of that, people from these markets, traffic from this market actually consists a significant chunk of our audience. So that was even one more reason for us to try to make that experience as local as possible. One of the ways in which we did that was that on most of our pages, we featured a section called Local Spotlight or Country Spotlight. And we did research for these markets, and we were able to pinpoint the themes, the trends that are going to be particularly popular in these markets, and display them on our page, present them on our pages within our web content. So here we are showcasing specifically Canada. But on top of that, like I mentioned before, we did have teams in Canada, Australia, India that were curating local content. For example, boards, Pinterest boards. And as long as we only had 2 locals on our site, it was very difficult for us to feed that local content to users from these markets. In most cases, our Canadian users would actually see the US board. Our users from Australia or India would most of the time see the board for the UK. And we really wanted to change that experience. So now what you're able to see right now on this page, I'm able to see the board, the US board, with 5 beautiful curated pins for biophilic design, created by delivered by US creators. But if I navigate to the page for Canada, and this is our page for Canadian users, I scroll down to the same CTA, I try to access this board, and you can see that the pins are different. So these pins are created by creators in Canada and curated by our Canadian team. And thanks to this kind of experience, our users internationally are able to feel that this content is especially for them, that we are going out of our way to make sure that the experience that they are getting is local. Now, since this content, whether it's a US page or it's a Canadian page, the content is still in English, we decided to launch these locales using a functionality called fallback locales in Contentful. So fallback locales is something that defines what content your users are seeing if that content is not localized. If you visit a German page and you stumble across unlocalized content, most of the time you will see that content in English, because that's the fallback locale for our German language. For our Canadian users, we did set the fallback locale to English US. For our users in India and Australia, we set the fallback locale to English UK. And thanks to using that functionality, it allowed us to launch those 3 new locales pretty much immediately, because we didn't have to do any additional localization work. We did have some changes to the local content. So we did have some changes between the Australia and India page opposed to versus the UK page. But some of these changes, some of these customization were addressed through the script, like the feeding different boards to our users with local content. And for the rest of the copy, for the actual copy, we were able to leverage the fallback locale functionality. So the copy from the UK is being displayed to our users in India and Australia. And the huge benefit of that solution for us was that at that point, we had already QA'd our UK pages and our US pages and made some fixes to fix some bugs, fix some content. So at this point, when we are launching these new locales, we knew that since, for example, English Australia would inherit the copy and the behavior from English UK, it would also most likely inherited the QA fixes. So our QA effort was also much lower than it would be if creating an entirely new locale from scratch. And these days, we are actually using that functionality, the fallback locale, more and more when localizing campaigns for local pages. And this is how we did it. So Smartling allowed us to centralize management of our international content, respond to any changes in that content pretty much immediately, and maintain consistency with that massive campaign without that much effort. On the other hand, Contentful made it possible for us to generate further time savings. And thanks to its functionalities, we were able to switch on the new locales, in the new English locales, like a breeze. And that is everything from me. This is the overview. So let me just stop sharing and switch over to you guys.
Thanks so much, Ella. You want to bring the slides back up? Okay, fantastic. That was wonderful, and we're going to take some time to go through Q&A in just a moment. But before we do, we just have a quick announcement. So we're excited to announce the Smartling Contentful Entry-Based Connector. So for those of you who want to localize on a more individualized basis, you can now do so. So Maddie, anything quick to add here?
Yeah, I'll just add from a contentful standpoint, we tend to look at localization from either field level or entry level. So this entry level connector is going to be better for options when your translations will be published at different times between different locales.
All right, wonderful. Well, if this seems like a good fit for you, feel free to reach out to us at any time to learn more about this new connector. So with that, we're going to open it up to Q&A. If you have any questions for Ella, for Maddie, for myself, please go ahead and pop them in the Q&A area. I'll give everybody a minute to do so, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Can see some things starting to come in. I think we'll start with one for Ella, not surprisingly. So Ella, how did you decide which locales exactly to pick for this campaign?
So we would obviously love to bring products to all markets and have it available in all languages, but unfortunately it wasn't possible. There was no single factor that determined our language selection. We were taking into consideration a lot of factors, like, for example, site traffic. But one of the primary roles of my team is support our local stakeholders. For Pinterest products, we had local teams create local boards, curate local content for their own markets. And it was very important for us to make sure that that effort is being showcased on the site, and that through that effort, we are providing local experience to our users. So that was one of our major factors in determining which locales will get localized for products.
Okay, wonderful. And you spoke to this a little bit, but what made you choose to add English Canada and English Australia instead of just having one or two English variants?
Of course. So as you know, Pinterest, you might know, but Pinterest Pinterest products is hosted on our marketing site, and we use that site to tell people more about Pinterest, show them how they can level up their marketing game, how to use Pinterest in their marketing efforts. And for us, one of the best ways to do that is to show them the data, show them local data that would apply to that market. And we actually had that data. We had that data for Canada, we had that data for Australia, but we didn't have any outlet until we only had the US and UK pages. We were trying to customize that experience for our US users, UK users, but we didn't have any outlet to showcase that data for Canada and Australia. And opening up these locales gave us the opportunity to showcase more local data, and also gave our local teams in Canada, teams in Australia, an opportunity to showcase local content, like local success stories. Even in India, we launched three new success stories just last month in India. So it wasn't a matter for us about choosing just one out of three. We wanted to be able to offer that opportunity to as many markets as possible.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ella. Got another one here. It says, since Contentful only uses one language as a source, how do you deal with having source updates for both US and UK English? Or is UK English considered a subset of US English? And I think that one's directed at Ella, although if Maddie has some additional input, feel free to jump in.
I would probably need to ask some more questions, but in general, if the copy is more or less the same, then we would make the update on the US side, and then we would have our UK linguists, we would have the copy, the updated copy feed through Smartling, and have our UK linguists adjust the copy in Smartling. And then the adjusted copy for UK English would feed back to Contentful. It would be an entirely different situation where if the copy was entirely different for UK and US, in this case, we would simply need to set up two entirely separate pages or two separate components, because again, it's not a localized copy, it's a custom copy for these languages.
Okay, well, hopefully that addressed the question. If not, person who asked it, feel free to follow up with some additional questions. I've got one here from Maddie. So Pinterest mentioned that they used contentful tagging functionality to help with localization. What other features have helped them with localization? And then of course, Ella, feel free to jump in as well.
Yeah, I'll take a crack at this first and then pass it over to Ella. But as Ella mentioned, they're also utilizing the fallback locales already, which is a great feature when it comes to localization. And then Pinterest specifically uses content wrappers to help build more page-centric views for different markets between, monetized versus non-monetized markets. So Ella, I'd love to pass it over to you if you want to share some more specifics on how you guys are using the content wrappers.
Of course. And for us, pretty much the best use case for using content wrappers is when we have local campaigns or local events. And we create banners for those campaigns, for those events that would go on our homepage. Right now on our US, UK, Canada, Australia, French and German homepages, we do have a banner advertising for Pinterest Presents, an event that is happening in 2 days from now. But if you navigate to the page in, let's say, Polish, Russian, or Spanish, that banner doesn't exist. That's exactly the same page localized into Polish, Russian, or Spanish. But because thanks to us being able to use the content wrapper, we are able to feed slightly different content or remove the content that is not relevant to those local users. And that actually is one of my favorite functionalities in Contentful, because that makes my role of providing this local experience that is customized to each user, that makes that job way easier.
Great. Thanks, Maddie. Thanks, Ella. So Ella, you talked a little bit about localizing URLs. Did you find that this impacted SEO, or can you speak to that a little bit?
So we did have the URLs that we localized, or where we had custom URLs for each market, were actually not URLs to our website. These were URLs to Pinterest product, and as such, they did not impact the SEO. And the URLs on our site, the URLs within the business site, so the site that is hosting Pinterest products, we decided not to localize them. We did put a lot of effort into localizing the page description, page titles, alt text, so everything that would allow for SEO optimization. But the URLs, we left them as is in all the international page versions. I don't think that had a lot of impact on the SEO, because if I'm looking at the URLs, they contain the name of the report, the name of the campaign, Pinterest Predicts, and that's a global name. We use the same name across all the markets. And then the rest of the URL for trend pages contains the name of the trend. So dopamine, dressing, curve appeal. And this is the kind of content where we are we created many of these terms, so we are obviously going to rank very highly in all of these terms, and these kind of spaces are not as competitive for us.
That definitely makes sense. Got another one here. What was the process for QA so that the site works correctly? Examples given: fit, URL, string wrap, etc. for all locales. How often did the site get updated for bug fixes, for instance?
So we had a round of QA once we had the entire localized site. So once we had the entire page, the entire trends report localized, we allocated some time for QA for all languages. We do have internal resources. We do have a team of amazing product and market specialists who are able to help us with QA. They navigated to each page within the report. They checked for linguistic issues. They checked for whether the pages were linking correctly and sending the users to the right content. And that happened just before the launch. And in terms of further updates, the predicts report actually, once it launches, it doesn't go through a lot of updates. There's pretty much nothing changing. So fortunately for us, we don't have a QA cadence for predicts report, because that content remains stable. It remains the same until the following year when we are going to launch another new report.
All right, thanks, Ella. I think that's the last of our questions, so we can begin to wrap up for today. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Maddie, for joining, for Ella, for the wonderful presentation, and then of course, everyone who has joined the webinar today. Again, if you have any questions or follow-ups, please feel free to reach out to us at Smartling.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.